So the first one was going to be BA. It's changed up a little now because I was looking at this about an hour or two ago. And as you can see, we were originally up at 170, but the setup's still there. So a few hours ago, we were up at 170, and you can see we were right at the ceiling for the week. And then on top of that, we are currently at an H5. If you go into Option Analyzer, you can see that only once over the last 200 days have we continued to an H6. So we have that going for BA. And then on CAT, right here, you can see that we're currently at the 50% odds. It's an L2, so nothing crazy. For the option analyzer, you can see that we get an L3 around 16% of the time over the last 200 days. But then if you break it down to the 7-wave daily, we just tapped this double bottom today. And we are also at the 50% odds. So potential swing, the main thing you'd be watching going into next week is if we can get to this vector and cross above. And then also last up on the 7-wave 60-minute, you can see this is the second lowest we've been over the last 50 days. The only other stop we have is this open state at 377.10. So if we get down to that, watch for that potential reversal. We're currently at the 10% odds and vector is at 380.5. So decent setup going into next week. We'll have to see what the ceiling floor comes out as next week. Here's another really good one, DIA. You can see we are on an L7, and yesterday or today we cleaned up this open state here. Currently at the 10% odds, and we have a open state at 438.4 if we continue just a little lower. But what I like about this is you can see over the last 200 days, we're currently at an L7. We've never continued to an L8. And then if you go ahead and increase it to 2,000 days, you can see only one time over 2,000 days have we continued lower to an L8. So pretty good odds, decent setup there. And then if you up it to the 7-wave daily, you can also see at the 50% odds and this double bottom here. And same thing on the 7-wave 60-minute today. Actually, we hit this open state, which was the lowest we had ever been over the last 50 days. Currently at the 2% odds, so now watching for that vector crossover at 439.81 for that move back to pivot. So this is a setup that I really like. Again, over the last 2,000 days, we've only continued lower one time to that L8 value. And on the 7-wave 60-minute, we're at the 2% odds, nearing a vector crossover, which we would then look for a move back to pivot. Here's another good one on EA. You can see today it's just at an L5, cleared up all previous open states, and the lowest it's ever been over the last 200 days. The odds of continuing, the odds of continuing to an L6 has only happened once over the last 200 days. We'll go ahead and up the days to load. You can see we just cleared up this open state from over a year ago. This was from November 2nd of 2023. So we cleared up this open state. Let's fix the percent odds. And we're below the 10% odds. And then on the option analyzer, we continued lower only 7 times total over the last 1,000 days. So pretty solid setup there. And then we'll change it to the 7-wave 60-minute. And you can see same thing, lowest we've ever been over the last 50 days. We'll load up a few more and see. Even over 200 days, today we actually cleared up an open state from July, I believe, of this year. So another really nice long setup going into next week. Here's one that's already played out. We're just gonna kind of show you how these odds can play very nicely. So here's a solid one on Google. I think a lot of people actually took this. with us being at the 5% odds, and we cleared up this open state from April this year. In option analyzer, you can see that from an H4, we only continued to an H5 around 13% of the time. So this is one that's already played out, but I'm just kind of showing an example of what some of these setups we're going over right now can turn out to be. They went from about 217, or sorry, not 217, 196 to a low of 192. Next up, we'll go for J&J, which I know a lot of you in the Discord were looking at this week. We actually, hold on, let's see. It's changed up a little bit since I was watching it earlier. Yeah, so when I was looking, making this watch list, we were down here at around, I believe it was 145.5. And we were actually below, like right below vector, or sitting right on it. Also below pivot, which we've now crossed above. So this is still a valid setup. It's just starting to move. We'd be getting in a little bit after the move started. But you can see here, 7-wave daily. We'd be watching vector at 147.92. And then on the 1-wave daily, before this was actually a green candle, we were down here at an L4. So this one's actually changed since I was making the watch list earlier. Sorry about that, but still a valid setup if you are already in longs, which I know some of you are. There's also one on NIO. This one, I wouldn't really be trading any options on it because it's such a small, doesn't have as much volume and it has much smaller moves. But we're currently at an L4, and you can see on the option analyzer, we've only continued to an L5 around 6% of the time over the last 200 days. We're also at the 10% odds. We cleared up these two open states. So this is looking like a good bounce, but again, wouldn't be taking any option plays on this just because it's $4.50, but not a bad, if you're actually like buying the stock for a move to like possibly $5 or whatever it may be. And then there were two more I was looking at. One of them was Visa. You can see here on the 7-wave 60-minute, we're crossing below vector right now. We had these two stacked clusters, which was showing the reversals from right here and right here. And we also cleaned up this open state today. Before the watch list, or while I was making the watch list, we were again up here around 316, and we were sitting right on vector. Now you can see we've crossed below. And then on top of that, you have, I believe it's the 1-wave daily. Is that an H4? You have these stacked clusters right here, and all that's showing is we've reversed a lot or multiple times in this area. And the odds, sorry, wrong tab. The odds of going to an H5, we only get that around 10% of the time. So this one again has also started to play out. We may need to start doing these watch lists right Friday morning because again, we can enter this, but the move's already partially started, but it's still a very valid entry with this cross below vector right here. Because remember, when we are above pivot but below vector, we start to look for that move back towards pivot. Like you can see right here, above pivot, we get that vector cross, and you get to start to see that move back down. And then last up was XOM. Again, I know some people were in this already, but we're just going to go over it really quickly. We're currently at an L6. You have this double bottom and open state that's been cleaned up, as well as us being at the 20% odds. From this L6, we've never continued lower to an L7 over the last 200 days. So we'll load up the more days. You can see we have a very thick cluster right here around where this candle is. And again, that's showing that we've had multiple reversals in this area. And over the last 500 days, only one time have we continued lower to an L7. So decent long setup going into next week.